Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh. It is August 6th, 2023. I am Stephanie Pulowski, commissioned lay minister with this church. I'm in my mid-40s, I wear glasses, I have graying brown hair, and I'm wearing a purple tunic. With me today is guest speaker David Harith. David Harith has been teaching Sunday school here at First Church for almost 30 years. He has previously spoken on truth and lies, fear and fearlessness, and why Juneteenth matters. I am thrilled to have him back today, and I can't wait to hear what he has to share with us. Our minister, Kate Walker, is off today. We are so glad you have chosen to be with us this morning. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome today. We are working for justice wherever the heavy weight of oppression has dug into the fabric of life. I have with me today volunteers and staff all working to bring this worship to you. On behalf of the team, thank you for being with us. If this is your first time with us, we would love to be in touch with you. If you have not already done so, please go to our welcome desk in the atrium. Or if you're with us on YouTube, please visit our website. Just Google First Unitarian of Pittsburgh and sign up for our weekly newsletter. If you're here in person, you're invited to join us for our social time following the service in the Schweitzer Room. If you're online, we have a Zoom social hour following the live worship. To get a Zoom link, just send an email to firstunitarianpittsburgh@gmail.com, and a link will be sent back to you in response. I invite you now to take a deep breath. Arrive in body and spirit and picture yourself connected with all others who are watching today and in the future. We turn now to our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. If you have a chalice at home, we invite you to light it at this time. And in the words of Robin Gray, day breaks on our gratitude for family and friends, for the freedom to find our own truth, for the company of those who gather here, and the promises we offer one another. Let the light of day bring the grace of faith into our lives. And may this flame burn bright in your heart and mind as we worship together. Now please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our opening hymn, hymn number 298, Wake Now My Senses.
Creation Good morning. This is the time in our service that we're calling Story for All. We used to call this time Time for All Ages. Amanda Gorman is a poet, the youngest poet ever to be asked to write and read a poem for a presidential inauguration. She wrote a poem called The Hill We Climb and read it at the inauguration of President Joe Biden in 2021. The poem was very popular and was published as a book, this book, that can be found in many classrooms across the country, classroom libraries across the country, except for some classrooms in the Miami Lakes School District down in Florida, where on the basis of a complaint by one parent, the book was removed from the classrooms in the lower grades, the K through 5th grade. So I'd like to read this poem especially for students in K through 5th grade, but for students in every grade also, and for people of all ages. This is our time for all ages. The Hill We Climb. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light? In this never-ending shade, the loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time, where a skinny black girl, descended from slaves and raised by a single mother, can dream of becoming president only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we're striving to form a union that is perfect. We are arriving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so that we can reach our arms out to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together victorious, not because we'll never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree. and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb if only we dare it. Because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've been a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe, now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from our bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills to the west. We will rise from the windswept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and dutiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light. If only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. And now we're going to sing a song for our children, number 399 from our hymn book. Please rise if you're able.
Every month, we share our generosity with a designated organization that shares our values. This month, it's yet to be determined, so it's a mystery. All donations are shared 50-50 with this organization unless otherwise designated. Our religious community is made up of volunteers and staff creating and hosting a variety of programming. We rely on your financial support. In addition to the collection plate, you can donate by texting GIVE to 412-435-1050 and following the directions. Please check at the end of the order of service for more instructions on ways to give. We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows. We remember those who are experiencing losses of various kinds and those facing health challenges. We are aware that many are faced with heightened difficulties presented by these times that continue to be challenging for us all. May those who suffer or mourn find peace. May those who hunger or thirst be quenched with nourishment and sated with the elixir of life. May those who have experienced violence find care and comfort and the healing that comes with time. May all of us find the loving kindness that is ours to share. May we open our hearts and minds to encircle with love and care all in our community and beyond. So may it be. Amen, namaste, and blessed be. Please join me in a few moments of silence, personal meditation, and prayer. In the words of Andrea Hawkins Camper, blessed are we who gather with open hearts together in this space today. Blessed are we, the chalice lighters of resistance, justice, love, and faith. Blessed are we, the heretics, the outcasts, the walkers of our own way. Blessed are we, the border crossers, the refugees, the immigrants, the poor, the wanderers who are not lost. Blessed are we, the transgressors, the trespassers, the passers-by, the cause takers, the defiant, the compliant. Blessed are we, the hand extenders, the sign makers, the protesters, and the protectors. Blessed are we, the trans women, the trans men, the non-binary, the cisgender, the multigender, the no gender. Blessed are we, the friend, the stranger, the lonely, the hidden, the visible, the authentic. Blessed are we who rise in solidarity. Blessed are we who cannot. Blessed are we who do not. Blessed are we, for this is our beloved community, and this is who we are. These are the words of the Reverend Theodore Parker.
democracy. That is a government of all the people, by all the people, for all the people. A government of the principles of eternal justice, the unchanging law of God. For shortness' sake, I will call it the idea of freedom. In 1943, with World War II raging, Harry Hopkins brought a copy of the New Yorker magazine to his boss, the President of the United States. He wanted FDR to read a short essay by E.B. White on the meaning of democracy. White wrote, "Democracy is the line that forms on the right. It is the don't in don't shove. It is the hole in the stuffed shirt through which the sawdust slowly trickles. It is the dent in the high hat. Democracy is the recurrent suspicion that more than half of the people are right more than half of the time. It's the feeling of privacy in the voting booth, the feeling of communion in the libraries, the feeling of vitality everywhere. Democracy is a letter to the editor. Democracy is the score at the beginning of the ninth. It's an idea which hasn't been disproved yet, a song the words of which have not gone bad. It's the mustard on the hot dog and the cream in the rationed coffee. The president read it, and he thought it was brilliant. "I love it," he said. Of course, the benefits of democracy were not available to all Americans all the time. For most of the history of this country, voting was restricted to a small, privileged few. But from the beginning, groups of Americans have worked to expand the envelope, to extend voting rights to more and more people. From the Reconstruction amendments after the Civil War, to the women's suffrage amendment in the 1920s, to the Snyder Act in 1924 that gave voting rights to Native Americans, to the Voting Rights Act in 1965 that continued the work of the civil rights movement. Our history has been one of gradually expanding the pool of voters. I'll never forget the morning of my 18th birthday. I was a senior in high school. I was called to the office that morning, and a paper was put in front of me to sign. It was my selective service paper. There was a war going on in Vietnam, and the government needed bodies. And now at 18, I was old enough to be drafted. But in those days, at 18, I was not old enough yet to vote. A couple of years later, the passing of the 26th Amendment would lower the voting age to 18, expanding again the pool of voters. But now, efforts are being made to reverse that trend. Since the 2020 election, lawmakers from across the country have introduced a series of laws that restrict people's freedom to vote. 19 states, most of them controlled by Republicans, have enacted 34 laws that make voting harder. Wendy Weiser, the vice president of the Democracy Program at the Brennan Center, said the way a lot of these restrictions work, they work by making it harder for just a subset of people. And that tends to disproportionately be voters of color, sometimes students, but they're very targeted. And voter suppression is not the only threat to democracy. New York Times reporter David Leonhardt has written that there's two other ways that our governing ideals are under threat. Number one, the growing movement inside one of the country's two major political parties, the Republican Party, to refuse to accept defeat in an election. The second is that the power to set government policy is becoming increasingly disconnected from public opinion. And sometimes it's the word itself that's under attack. In an article in the New York Times Magazine, Robert Draper writes about a Republican precinct committee woman named Selena Bliss, who was running for an Arizona State House seat. She lost that race, by the way. He quotes her as saying, "We are a constitutional republic. We are not a democracy." Nowhere in the Constitution does it use the word democracy. I think of democracy as the Democratic Republic of the Congo. That's not us, Bliss said. But of course, a democratic republic is exactly what we are. A republic is a thing. It's a political thing. It's a form of government. But democracy is an idea. And ideas can be religious as well as political. Abraham Lincoln had an unconventional religious faith. He never joined a church. And yet his speeches were filled with religious and biblical references. Frederick Douglass said that Lincoln's second inaugural address was more like a sermon than a political speech. So it wouldn't be unusual for Lincoln to use a phrase from a sermon in a speech. Lincoln's law partner in Springfield was a man named William Herndon. Herndon, like Lincoln, was intensely political and intensely anti-slavery. He was a great admirer of Theodore Parker, the transcendentalist and the Unitarian pastor of Boston's largest church at the time. Herndon went to Boston and met Theodore Parker, came back to Springfield, and gave Lincoln a copy of Parker's sermons. And Lincoln read and marked various passages. And that's how Parker's eloquent and simple definition of our country's essential democracy made it into Lincoln's most famous speech. Delivered at another time in our country's history where democracy was under threat. Lincoln said that day in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, "We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a birth of freedom, and that this government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." Unitarian Universalists believe that the practice of democracy is sacred. In our services, we covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and also the democratic process. We believe that every voice matters, and that every voice should be heard. We believe in working for a true multiracial democracy that reflects our diverse nation. If we are standing on the side of love, we are also standing on the side of democracy. People who know me know that I'm a great NPR listener. The NPR reporter Ari Shapiro wrote a book that came out this year called The Best Strangers in the World. In that book, he writes about a woman he met in Zimbabwe. Her name was Florence Mashinga. And she was resolved to work as a poll monitor in the national elections, even though her neighbors burned down her home and slaughtered her livestock after she supported the opposition in a previous election. She said to Ari, "I will make sure there is peace during this election. I am brave enough." Like Amanda Gorman wrote, are we brave enough to see it? Are we brave enough to be it?
Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our closing hymn, hymn number 121, "We'll Build a Land." Please be seated. As we extinguish the chalice, please join me in reading the words printed in the order of service, words that are spoken at Unitarian Universalist congregations and fellowships throughout the country. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And for our benediction, the words of Jim McGaw. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go in mindless oblivion. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go without challenging yourself or others. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go in utter ease and comfort. When I say go in peace, I mean go in peace seeking justice. I mean go in peace committed to equal rights and opportunities for all. When I say go in peace, I mean go in peace that is created when together we build communities of true solidarity, deep compassion, and fierce, unrelenting love. Go in peace.